One of our employees was out of town in a clinic setting, and due to the training, she recognized a situation where this is a problem. It was an older man and a girl who he was claiming was 18, but she didn't look 18. And so she took action. It's kind of a long story, but the cops ended up coming to the clinic, arresting him, pulling the girl into safety, said, "Do you know where you're staying?" And they took the girl. She didn't know the address, but she could guide them to where she was staying. When they got there were 11 other girls under the age of 18.
You're listening to the Good for Business podcast, where we feature interviews, tips, and tricks from owners, operators, and innovators throughout Mississippi and around the world. And now, your host, Colin Krieger. Welcome to the show this week. My personal growth guru and personal improvement buddy, Amy Bogue, is here. She is we're going to call her the Executive Director, President of Dutch Health Group. Is that correct?
Yeah, health services. Sure.
Health services. Close enough, which is our motto here at the Good for Business podcast. Held at Catfish Alley Studios, which is unbeknownst to me, and I'll tell that story later. Your little brother, big brother, owns the studio. Yeah. Little brother owns Mississippi's only Web 3.0 studio. So, Amy, welcome to the show. Give me your pedigree first. Who are you? Where you live? That sort of stuff.
Sure. Colin, thanks for having me. Such an honor. You're an amazing person in this town. We're lucky to have you. So thanks for asking me to join the show.
Thank you.
But my name's Amy Bogue. Gillis is my maiden name. So I was born here, raised here, left, went to University of Alabama, moved around a lot with my husband, Matt. And then we decided to come back home to the family business.
Yeehaw. So as I do every week, let's go straight into your origin story. And I'm thinking little 13, 12-year-old Amy Gillis pumping gas or doing whatever you were doing. What was your first job ever, even if it's cutting grass or working?
Yeah. So my very first job was actually at my family business. I would sit at the reception desk and answer the phone. I still can remember the extensions. And we still have some employees that work there today that were there when I was 13 years old.
And what's the family business for people who don't know?
Sure. The big parent company is called the Dutch Group.
Okay.
And so the Sprint Marts that you might see around town, my granddad started the company almost 55 years ago.
Well, there you go. And what were you doing? So you worked at the front desk was your first job?
Very first job. Yep.
Okay. What did you go on from there?
Well, then I wanted my driver's license. I mean, it's a big deal, and you can get it at 15. So I actually worked for BankTel for Boyce Adams. Was my first official job outside of my family business. And so that's been fun to see their journey and their success. It's been awesome.
Yeah, because I first became aware of them when I was in Oxford, because they had an Oxford connection up there, and they actually I ran a whole bunch of Papa John's, and they handled our bank stuff. So I was first, when I came back, came 20 years ago from Katrina, lived here for a year and a half, moved up to Oxford for a couple of years, and then came back, and he was the first person. I'm like, yeah, you were in Oxford too. So
yes,
a little small world. So, all right. So what did you do for them, for BankTel?
Oh, just filing things, stuff that a 15-year-old could do. But I've worked my entire life. From there, I've worked at Rubens. I've been a waitress before. When I went to college, I had multiple jobs. I know you had Renee on, and she taught aerobics. I've taught fitness classes for 15 years. I always enjoyed a free gym membership until I was tired of doing that. I wanted somebody to lead me, but I've worked in the restaurant industry. I've had a lot of jobs.
By the way, I'd like to say, I think we're on episode 8. We're 8 for 8 on some food service experience and, being an entrepreneur.
Nice.
Usually there's one hot, horrible job. There's one working for a friend or family member, and then there's the inevitable restaurant thing, which is in some ways is sales.
It is.
You're in there for it. Can you talk about how you developed from that? Like, were there any pressures when you were a baby working for your family as opposed to where we've gotten to today?
No, I will give my family a lot of credit. There's never been pressure for any of us to get in the family business. In fact, I started as an accounting major at University of Alabama. And that's laughable. I would make a terrible accountant. I like to live in the gray, and they are very black and white. And so I was walking across campus freshman year and thought, I do not want to sit behind a desk all day. And I really like people. And I thought about nursing, and there's no one medical in my family except my uncle by marriage. So I didn't have anybody to talk to about what does the medical field look like. And so I talked to my advisor, and she said, oh, you can, swap to nursing. You're just going to have to go to school an extra semester, which happened to be the fall. So I called my dad. I said, I've got good and bad news. Bad news, I need to stay one more semester. And I said, the good news is I get one more football season. So I did swap majors and ended up graduating that December. And have not regretted it since.
Well, I've got a daughter headed to Ole Miss right now, and that's what they say is the most valuable class is the intro to blank, an intro to engineering, an intro to medicine and accounting. Intro to accounting and intro to engineering have the highest dropout rate, and it's usually the kids should drop out the third day. My middle daughter is going to MSMS, is interested in engineering, and they have the same problem. They have an intro to engineering class there, and they say usually about 4 classes in, the kids are like, I like math a little, but I had no
Yes.
idea that I'd have to know it. And they're sort of at a crossroads now where the AI and the computer's doing so much of the work, but they still have to learn it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's still not at a point where they'll allow you to get a degree and
Right.
not do it. So you switch gears, and did you work when you were in college at all?
Oh, yeah, I would have all kinds of jobs. Like I said, the restaurant industry or mostly teaching aerobics at the fitness center. That was fun.
That's pretty groovy. And okay, so you finished school. Did you go to nursing school next?
Yes. Well, nursing school at University of Alabama.
Okay, well,
So-
nobody's going to hold that against you. So my mother graduated from University of Alabama in 1962. So she was there in the original heyday. You would have been there in the
Yes.
second heyday, I guess.
That's right. So you bleed a little crimson then.
It's there. My kids have zero interest in it whatsoever. I'm gonna interject with a great story of my mother, the late Patricia Martini. Her name was Patricia Martini. Her roommate was Sandra Champagne. So they were there, and she came to live down here. She knew Columbus when we moved here after Katrina as the drinking town. Like, I was like, you're not going to know where we moved. She's like, Columbus? She's like, that's where we went to drink, and those W girls and all that. I'm like, she knew everything about what was Columbus then in the late 50s, early 60s, which is a pretty rocking town, drinking wise. And so they had her, she's like, it's her 50th reunion. You know, do you want to drive me over there Saturday or Sunday? And I'm like, whatever day's fine with you, Mom. I figure we're going to go hang out with some blue hairs or whatever. And I'm bringing her over there Sunday. She's like, oh, I'm so glad we didn't go yesterday. I'm like, why? She's like, it just looked horrible. I'm like, what looked horrible? And she's like, oh, it looked horrible on TV. I'm like, what do you mean? Because they played LSU yesterday. I'm like, she's like, yeah, I saw some of my classmates. Yeah, they brought them out on the field, and it just looked so hot and miserable. And I'm like, but you were on the field at an LSU #1 versus #2 night game. Like, that was your home. Yeah. She's like, yeah, but it's so much easier to go today. And I'm like, oh, mother, just fill in the details next time if you could. So God bless her. But yeah, Alabama, not a bad place. I've tried to trick my kids into going there, but so far they're 1 for Ole Miss. So. So what happens immediately after nursing school?
So after nursing school, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
I knew I wanted to get out of Mississippi or Alabama. I've always enjoyed traveling and exploring new places. And Matt was working in Charlotte, and we had dated in high school, broke up for 10 years. And then we always wished each other happy birthday on our birthdays. Mine's August, his September. He said, what are you going to do when you graduate? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm not staying in Mississippi or Alabama. So he said, why don't you come visit Charlotte? So I did, interviewed, got a job up there, and the rest is history.
And explain to everybody, what does Matt do? What's his grown-up job?
He actually used to work in corporate America for Stanley Black & Decker, which is why we moved a lot, lived in several states as he was climbing the corporate ladder. So I could work at a hospital, and I could get a job anywhere as we were going. And then we were pregnant with my second child, and my dad had always told Matt, if you want a job in the family business, you can have one. And we were getting ready to move again. And we thought, we could do this a lot. We would go overseas. We would end up in the Northeast. Matt would have a great job, make a lot of money. Or we could go back home and actually have a relationship with our family and our
a
kids.
babysitter.
A babysitter. Yeah. They could have a relationship with their grandkids. And so we made that decision to come back home.
Excellent. So when you came back here, what did y'all do first step in the door?
Well, I had the baby, Brooklyn, my second, and Matt started with the grunt work. I mean, my dad and granddad, they like you to know from the ground up. So he was driving with the 18-wheelers. He was delivering gas and oil. He was working shifts at the Sprint Mart and just getting to know the entire industry and get a feel for every single job. And then he's grown and was last year named as president of Dutch. So He's learned all the jobs.
That's all I've heard from everybody involved. I've had some friends who worked for y'all. Is that paying your dues seems to be stamped on the wall there.
Yes,
so,
yes.
Because y'all have a pretty good retention rate, at least in the front office stuff, right?
Right.
As far as keeping folks. And so how did that lead into, I guess, Allegro, everything else you're doing? Allegro Plaza, the whole 9 yards.
Everything. Yes, kind of random. My granddad, like I said, is a true entrepreneur. And we had a pharmacy. That was the first step into the medical world. He wanted to be a pharmacist when he grew up. Loves an independent pharmacy, still does. And so he put one at Dutch Village. It was the very first one in the state. Just to give you an idea of his entrepreneurship, back then, he put a bank, it was a VHS rental, dry cleaning, pharmacy, and a gas station. And so they called it Dutch Village. And that was kind of the birth, 1990, for us getting into the medical world. And so he grew to a couple pharmacies, and we had one out in New Hope that had half gift shop, half pharmacy. And so I moved back, and I'm a nurse, and kind of like, I want to get back into work. I don't like to just sit. And he goes, great. I want you, I joke with people like a blank sheet of paper. I want you to open a clinic next door to the pharmacy out in New Hope. Whew, okay. I'm like, I have worked in the hospital. I'm clinical and I'm pretty decent at that job. I did not know anything about the business world. And so I joke to a lot of people that I got my MBA the hard knocks way. I learned boots on the ground. I lost a lot of money. I made a lot of mistakes. But then I really understood the world and started to see some success, and okay, this is how you do it and this is how you don't do it. And so we've been able to grow that way.
Yeah, well, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in that situation, it's bounce checks and YouTube.
Yes.
You're like, thank God there's YouTube around now to
Yeah.
be like, oh, here's an interesting idea for marketing, or how do I follow the HIPAA regulations? Because I know that that is just such a scary thing now. I've seen Baptist is about to close in the big hospital over there, and then in the middle of that, they have a huge records incidents where they violated some HIPAA rules and got in trouble. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like how do you even put a number on that?
I know, medical world is crazy.
It's insane. Crazy. And it's just my uncle is a preeminent anesthesiologist in New Orleans, and that's why he got out of private practice. I mean, he's retired now, but he's just like, I don't even feel safe advising people anymore and talking to them. So
it's hard. Medicine's really, really hard, but we're trying to figure out ways to make it work.
And New Hope was the first one?
New Hope was the first, yes.
So you wouldn't draw that on paper if you were looking at a map of the Southeast and just say, hey, I'm going to go to New Hope, Mississippi.
That's
population
right.
3,700.
Yes.
And do it. But there was definitely a need out there for it, obviously.
There was, yes. So. And we started, and, I look at the drawings now, and sometimes as an entrepreneur, when you go back and I look at New Hope and I look at the clinic on First Floor Plaza, I'm like, gosh, there's so many things I would do different.
Yeah.
But then you get to make those changes as we've grown, and with our OBGYN, that clinic is everything that I wish I could have done in the other ones. I even made room for an ice maker in there. It's like the little just fun things in life, like, and get you a staff bathroom. I feel so bad for some of the other clinics that I just didn't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, well, I had a time dealing with corporate Papa John's. They'd come into a new build of a store and they're like, this sink needs to be here, this, and we're like, that's dumb. And then like 2 years later, I'm gonna be like, somebody would drop something. I'm like, that's why the sink's there. Yeah. Like that's why that table's there, is because they've spent the time and learning. Yes. And most of my guests, we've talked about that in restaurants, the skill set that restaurants give you of prioritizing clients. That's a big deal in your business, is the constant text alerts I get for a point. I like that I've done with y'all when they're like, you have an appointment tomorrow at 2:00. And I'm like, thank you, computer.
Yes.
And she's like, this is Missy. It's a real, like, they're watching it, yes. But I'm like, thank you, robot computer. And it's not 100% robot computer.
Right. Yeah. We still want that personal touch. A funny story for entrepreneurs. I never thought about it till I had to put the first one on, but every sign, like you're talking about the sinks, every sign that a business owner puts up has a story. Because you don't think that you need to put the sign up until an incident happens. The first time somebody brought a gun and threatened one of our providers, okay, no gun sign. The first time somebody brought a kangaroo into the plaza, and I'm like, we cannot have these animals here at a clinic, so put up the pet service animal only sign. So it's so funny. Now I notice, like when Zachary's had to put up their sign for the smell of cannabis, it's like, okay, something happened for you to have to put up this sign. And so those type of things are funny for me now.
Yeah. So you're testing and learning the whole time. You've accomplished quite a lot for somebody in their early 30s. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm about to be 42, but thank you for the compliment.
I'm working the room all the time here. So Allegro Plaza, the best thing, I think the thing people publicly noticed the most was the remodel. Was that 18 or 19, something like that? Is that
2017?
17, so close enough.
Yes.
And so that was a pretty extensive remodel there.
And it's got a neat story, because the gas station across the street, we own the property to the right, and we had paid for plans to be drawn. And my granddad and I are standing over there. We're looking at the plans, and his business mind is just so fun, because he looks over there and he's looking down, and we know how much this is going to cost. And he looks over there. He's like, I think we can buy this building for cheaper than what we can build. And then I have a dream for you, Amy. I want you to fill it up one day. And so what's really special about, we just opened up our 6th clinic location on the 2nd floor, Allegro Behavioral Health. It's like I just walked in and you almost get a little teary-eyed and emotional, like we did it. You know,
Yeah.
it took however many years, but we did it. And it's really, really special.
Well, you and I have connected on, I guess, personal improvement, personal growth stuff. And I've been impressed on how much you've implemented with like team meetings and stuff. Because there are people with clinics. I'm on one of the boards of the hospital. There have been different directors who had different ideas of that, team growing, things like that. I
Mhm.
used to think they were silly when I was in corporate America, and now I don't have a team, but I understand the benefits of them. Can you speak to how like personal growth and development affected you, and how you've implemented stuff like challenges and meetings and goals and coaching in your
Sure.
business?
Sure. Yeah, about 2019, I literally felt like I was drowning. North Mississippi was closing down 2 of their clinics. We ended up buying them and converting those from a hospital system to a clinic in 6 weeks. I'd like to talk to somebody else in the nation who's done that, because if you understand the ins and outs of a hospital system and then a private practice, even sometimes I think, how did we do that? By the grace of God. But I had a young kid. I just had Bennett, and so I've got 3 young kids, trying to be a mom, trying to develop new business, and I'm literally drowning. We had bought the 2 clinics, and then we acquired the med spa, and then we tried to open one in Northport, Alabama. Lost a lot of money there, had to close that down. Long story, but I thought I need some guidance. Like I need somebody to help me. And honestly, I really wanted a female, because being a mom with young kids is so different than being a male that is a CEO. And so I looked far and wide, and I joke, like I really prayed for 2 years for God to give me a female mentor. And now he's given me multiple, which is really cool. And so I went to a conference in Nashville that really changed how I thought about what you're talking about, and just leadership and what to do and how to do it, and coaching. And, we do have team meetings, and our top managers all have a coach right now. And it has been the best decision. I try to tell business owners that's probably the best investment I've made, is coaching for our staff, because it's having a third party's view come in that is, one, holding you accountable, but 2, helping you come up with your goals, and seeing you through them and giving you advice that's not biased, because they're not day to day working with you. It has
Yeah.
been a game
Well, and
changer.
they also don't have the familiarity and the limiting beliefs that like, so if I'm working for you for 2 years and you tell me something about, I mean, literally move that light over there. I'm like, well, you don't know what the light is, blah, blah. And it's an instinctive thing because that's your little area and your thing, my kingdom. When somebody else comes, so Jakob Weinstein's my life coach. It's been about 2 years now. Been revolutionary, not for he's like, go do the podcast, dummy. Like quit
Yeah,
waiting. Or he's like, I'll
sure.
I'll be like, well, I don't know who wants to be on there. No, he's like, and just, I can hear him staring over the phone when I call him. He's going to be on here in a couple of weeks. But
Great.
a lot of that has been limiting beliefs. And then, of course,
Yes.
managing stress,
Yes.
where sometimes you have to look at your business as if it was your personal life and look at your personal life as it was a business. So,
Yes.
and I've had that breakthroughs with him of dealing with stress where he's like, everything's been all right so far. And I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, everything in your life's been okay. Like everything you've worried about may have closed down the clinic and
Mm-hmm.
may have been embarrassing or horrible or whatever, but it's worked out in general.
Sure.
And especially if you start trying to live in the future and not just, harp on what happened last week or the loss on that, because you can, it's easy to collapse. I did
It is.
appreciate too, as a father of 3 daughters, who I've actively tried to make sure that like they're aware of who you are and aware of Renee Sanders. And, when we had a female commander of the Air Force Base, or I'm like, Lynn Sproul, like when I introduced them to Lynn Sproul in Starkville, I'm like, she's the
Mhm.
first woman ever to land a plane on an aircraft carrier. I'm like, she's here in
Right.
Columbus, Mississippi. Samantha Weeks
Right.
was the first female Thunderbird. I'm like, this is amazing that you can reach out and touch these folks in a community like
Right.
this. The biggest reference I have to the female male dynamic isn't that big of a deal. But when I see a house painted poor colors outside, I'm like, they just didn't call their wife. I'm like, no wife's allowing
Right.
all these black houses out there.
Yeah.
And so like I bring my wife and daughters and after they're like, we're going to veto all this color. I'm like, thank you. Cause I
Yes.
can tell you when you're wrong, much like a
Right.
coach could, but I'm not going to contribute on the color spectrum of it.
That's right.
How many employees work for at least the the clinic
Yeah,
side?
I actually just got numbers today. I'm filling out some insurance forms. So we have 177 now,
Holy
if you
cow.
count everybody.
And how many counties? Is that just Lowndes County?
No, I've got 3 pharmacies in Tuscaloosa and 1 in Fulton, but then
Okay.
everything else is here in Lowndes
Well, that's
County.
a lot of people.
I thought that too. I thought, oh, I was closer to 130.
Yeah.
You just don't keep up.
Well,
Sometimes you're just going and blowing. And I did all the math
you might
today, and
have
I
to
said,
have a talk with
wow.
Missy at the scheduling thing. I have to cut your hours back.
Yeah.
You're sitting here texting Colin all that. Yeah, that's a lot to manage. And of course, all the rules, I mean, depending on how they're broken up, the rules change a lot when you're over 100 people, financing and taxing
Yes.
wise and all that. So
Yes.
is y'all's biggest burden, I won't call it not, I guess, regulation, not active hands-on regulation, but the HIPAA management stuff?
I wouldn't say HIPAA I think everyone's well trained in HIPAA. Our biggest hurdle, honestly, on the pharmacy side would be the PBMs. You've heard that nationwide. And then on the clinic side is just the hurdles with insurance. And this is what is so hard and frustrating. If you talk to a pharmacist or a physician provider, over a certain age, they would almost tell the younger people, don't do this. It's so stressful. We're missing the good old days. And the good old days where, Colin, you come in, you need XYZ, you need the CT. I'm a doctor. I know what you need. I write the order, you go get the CT. Now it is so many hurdles. There are so many hurdles to jump through. So, Colin, you need a CT. Hold on. What insurance do you have? Oh my God. Now we got to get, you got to get a PA. And then some insurances are, they will have we call them the suits, calling the doctors saying, well, tell me your, plan of action. And, oh, no, I do want you to go get therapy first and then an x-ray, and then we'll let you get the CT. That's very frustrating for medical professionals, whether that's pharmacy, clinic, because we didn't go to school to treat people based on what insurance they have. We all just want to treat the patient to the best of our ability and what we think is right and fair, and not have someone say, oh, sorry, you can't do this. It's very frustrating.
As a person that's paid out of pocket for 3 MRIs just to forego the 6-week process for my wife. And we're friends with everybody at Columbus Orthopedic, and we can go to your clinic, and now I can at least go to Columbus Orthopedic. I'm like, my ankle's broken. Do we need to do this whole dance? And they're like, no, you can come in here. But if you start, they'll be like, okay, go over there, do an x-ray, do 6 weeks of therapy, then you get an MRI. And so for my wife, who's 25 surgeries in, we've gone to the imaging center, and I'll be like, what's the rack rate?
Right.
Yeah,
that's
can
right.
I just give you money? And it's a surprisingly low number, folks. By the way, it's not $200, but it's not the $1,800 that insurance bills, because you've already gone through all these processes before to get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And they love it when you come in there. I'm like, I was like, I need an MRI. For fun? I'm like, I can do it. They're like, well, you're insurance. I'm like, I'm just going to pay you because Dr. Edwards is waiting to do the surgery, but he needs the MRI. So and if he orders it. And yeah, the pharmacy stuff, I've been watching a lot from Chris, what he posts about it. And it's scary. So was which by the way, favorite backup pharmacy in the world other than your family pharmacy. The donut,
hey, we're friends with them.
The donut shop one. So were y'all still affiliated with them? I know they just shut down, right?
Yeah, we're shutting down at the end of the week.
Is it today?
And it would be due to the PBMs and the low reimbursement. And we're going to focus our efforts on the 4 bigger ones in town. You have to have the volume, and that store's just smaller. And so due to PBMs, I'm trying to tell legislators, this is our 3rd one to shut down in 3 years, two years. And so there's been some movement, but we also have a lot of pushback. And I wish that we would model Arkansas and some other states that have really taken action. And I feel good with the traction from administration and nationwide that we will get there. It's just how many more have to close down until we do.
And as a state legislator here, I know it's quite a fight this last year. Was it receptive to it, or they're only there? They're only and I'm dealing with it with the MS stuff. Most of them don't even know somebody usually coming down from the Speaker of the House or something is given not orders, but been like, this is bad. And then no matter how many times you scream at them, like, this is good, this is good, this is good. And then, of course, the lobby gets smaller for independent pharmacies every year.
It's so hard, yes.
I've told this story now 3 times on the podcast. I'm going to say it again. So February, Super Bowl Sunday, we had a party at our clubhouse, and our TV was broken. So I rushed to Walmart, where you should have gone to Cowboy Mahoney's, but it was like a Saturday morning. And I called my wife. I'm like, have 70-inch TVs always been $250? Is it a special? She's like, no. I'm like, why are they so cheap? And she's like, you haven't been in Walmart in 3 years. And it's not like I don't want to go. I'm like, if it's something I'm ordering on military hardware or sunflowers, I
Yeah.
just don't want to go in there.
Right.
Not only are they national, and that's how I feel about the pharmacy. Or like when I hear people like, oh, I go to Walmart pharmacy. I'm like, I
Right.
was like, you should get your diabetes medicine from the place that sells donuts. Like
Yes,
that's
that's
the
right.
kicker. It's a win-win for everybody. So does Sprint Mart still operate that store? Because they
Yes.
sold a couple. Did they sell
No, they still
Tina?
operate that.
So Tina, the one that was
Right.
Bobby Watkins,
Right.
was then Sprint Mart, and now it's somebody else.
Right.
Okay.
Right. They sold that one, but they're still going to own and operate the donut factory.
Okay. Were
So,
there any others that they sold off the top of mind that I could think of?
I would have
We're
to
not
ask
going to
Matt.
be.
That's
We're
Matt's
not.
world.
We're not going to be against them. We're not going to boycott them.
No.
I've been working.
Well, just look for the Sprint Mart because it would be branded Sprint Mart.
Okay, so they changed the name. Yeah.
Yes.
And I mean, we knew Bobby when he was there and stuff.
Yes,
and
he's
so,
fantastic.
And yeah, and now I've moved my entire lobbying power, all the strength I have, and telling everybody that we're pressuring Mr. John at United Deli to move out to over by the industrial park, and that he could retire in a couple weeks. He's happy.
We love him too. We support
I'm
him.
going to try to get him on here. That will take a lot to get him to. He doesn't even want to talk about all the good deeds he does. So
Yes, no,
I'm going to
he's
work
awesome.
on that. So
I will tell you a fun story that most people don't know. When you sit down and say somebody wants to talk about the beginning, when you have that blank sheet of paper and you think, I need a logo. And so not many people know this story, but my pastor from college also had a degree in graphic design. And so I heard you and Scott talking about the green, and our logo is green as well. And he had done a lot of research about, okay, green is calming. And, we don't want to be red like the emergency room. And you go through all these colors and things. And so we landed on the logo, and I remember he only charged me $300. And at the time, I mean, I'm brand new in business. I'm like, this is so expensive for a logo,
then you
And
bought
so-
the actual sign.
Right. And it's laughable now. Like, Karen at Neon would be laughing like, oh my God, $300.
That's all you got. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's fun to go back. And the story of how we named it, not many people know this, but what's on our very first Medicare application was Community Care Clinic, because we had to put something to get credentialing started. And the name just bothered me and I didn't like it. And I'm just sitting there going, this is not the name of the brand that I want to help create. And but I wanted to honor my granddad, but he's very humble and he would never want his name anywhere. He doesn't even, not a lot of people know that he started all this stuff. And so I was at his farm. He raises and races Arabian horses. And there's a rock out there that says Allegro Farms. And as soon as I walked up that day, it was overwhelming. Like, that is the name of the clinic. And so it was pretty fun to go into his office. And I told him, I said, all right, I'm changing the name. I know what I want, but I need his approval. May I name it Allegro Family Clinic? And he goes, I like that. So it's set and it was fun. It's not way back when, but 2013 is when we started. We still had phone books. And so my name starts with an A.
Yeah.
Allegro starts with an A. Allegro means fast. I wanted to be a fast walking clinic. So you pretend you're answering the phone, Amy from Allegro. I'm like, that sounds good. I like it.
Yeah. Well, I went old school. My phone number's 329 sold. So like I spent that time and people are like, why did you do that? I'm like, well, there's still a generation of people who did that.
That's right.
Touch on real quick, like the legacy of the Gillis family. So what did Grandpa do? Was he the first one in big business or what was he doing?
Yes. Well, he used to work for Shell Corporate and he's really good at real estate. It's kind of a hidden talent of his that he would tell Shell or suggest to Shell where to put their gas stations. But he also, because of corporate America, just moved a lot. And he had 4 young kids. And my dad was changing schools all the time. And my great-grandparents lived here. And so he decided, I think he was 29 or 30, and decided I'm going to stop moving and settle down.
Sound familiar?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's a very similar story. And so he moved here and started his jobbership, and his Volkswagen was his delivery car. His home phone was the business phone number. And so it's really neat to see how he's grown from there. And he has the stats. I can't quite recall if there were 12 jobbers when he first started here, and now there's like 2. There were some really hard years. And he pinched pennies, and there were days like, are you going to make payroll? A lot. Sometimes as a business owner,
So
you
he was
put,
in the 50s and 60s is when he started, or in the 60s?
yeah, somewhere in there. I should know the year
Well, I
if
mean,
I did the math
I
reverse.
know when Shell started, and
Right.
then like being in New Orleans, Shell was a big deal down there until
Yes.
the crash in like the early 80s. So
Yes.
yeah, so that's what they say, for every economic crash, there's 5 oil crashes or dips.
Mm,
Like it's a talk
it's
about a
hard.
volatile business. I mean, everybody needs it and it's got to be there, but
Mhm.
it's also
It's
not quite as
hard.
fun, and you're not making dollars, you're making pennies
No.
off every little thing. So
Thank you. Most people think it's a ton. I'm like, no, it's barely. Sometimes you're losing money on that. We really need people to buy your soda. And it's kind of like what you're saying with the pharmacies. The big chains can make it because they're making money off the milk and soda. A lot of times gas stations might even lose at the pump, but they're really hoping you come in and buy your biscuit or your drink so they can make it work. So
that's
there's a
why
misconception there.
I tell Mr. John every time I come there, he's always trying to give me. He's like, "I'm sorry, the gas is more across or less across the street." And I'm like, there's a small percent of the population. I want the pump to behave,
Yeah.
which is what I loved about Bobby Watkins, and I love about majority of the Sprint Marts, where they don't ask me 6 questions, they just ask me 1. And
Right.
if they ask
Right.
me more than 1, I'll file a complaint with corporate and be like, "Why are you asking me 5 different questions? I just want to pump my gas." I don't like, to me, the price is, I mean, I guess it's relevant. I only notice like when it hits $80 on,
Right.
depending on which car I'm in, and then it starts to break my heart, and a single tear comes
That's
down and all that sort of
right.
stuff. And your dad worked for him too.
Oh,
So
yeah, since he was 18. Same thing. He started from the ground up, and then he became president, and then he named Matt that last year. And so Dad's working on just really big, high level. We bought a family business in Huntsville, Mississippi. Pretty neat story.
Mississippi or
I mean,
Alabama?
Alabama. And that company had much larger offers from the big guys, but they wanted to keep it family run. And there is a difference,
Oh yeah,
between family owned and corporate America, especially those that have worked in both. And so that was a pretty neat deal that they've still been working on. And yeah, I'm proud of them. They've done a good job.
that's pretty cool. Well, I mean, it's exceptional to get past the second generation. So congratulations on
Ooh,
that. Like,
thanks.
exception. I mean, yeah, that's up in the 70-80% range. It usually takes families to have hundreds of $1 millions to be able to afford for their kid to just completely screw off and not do,
Hmm.
because there's pressures in both directions. There are not, including my good friends with the IMS, of like people that people think have these unlimited resources and don't
Hmm.
understand the pressure of, you
Keeping the
need to do
business
this and you
going.
got to. I
Yeah.
always talk about the IMS because they own a bunch of properties in town and don't charge people enough rent. Don't raise the
Right.
rent on my friends, but I'm like, a lot of the buildings downtown would be beat up if it wasn't for them. And we,
Right.
again, I have friends at WCBI and the dispatch, and if the dispatch, they're not printing money, they're hanging in there, but like, they're the reason some of the other news outlets have the stories to tell. It's
Right.
because they're investing and putting in the work, which they don't need to do. I don't think they need to do.
Right.
As I tell my kids when they'll say something not about them, but they'll be like, "Oh, their dad did this." I'm like, I hope you're somebody saying that about you one day. Like, that's literally my goal. Daughter going to Old Miss, which is like a resort right now. They tell me we were at Old Miss tour, and they're like, "By the way, we're gonna have a second set of ropes course up next year." I'm
Nice.
like, good. But they have 15 mental health counselors and Pilates. And I'm like,
Great.
and she's going to school from 10 to 2 every day. And my
So
proudest
nice.
moment, she's a hard worker. She's like, she wants to get 2 jobs. She's like, I can get 2 jobs if I want to go to school. I'm like,
Yeah.
please enjoy college for 1 semester and then go work. So,
That's right. So
clinics,
funny.
clinics are rocking and rolling now. Let's
Mhm.
start talking about some of the new stuff. You had somebody come in town last week and we were just telling the
Yes.
story. So share some stories.
Sure. No, we like to do, like, I try to tell our staff we want to make a profit so we can turn around and pay our people fairly and give back to the community. Like, those are the big goals. And in doing that, we also want to help educate the community. So about 2.5 years ago, got to hear Tim Tebow live, just in a room of about 35 people, and heard his journey on how he got into human trafficking. And I, like many others, you hear that term and you feel like it's so broad and you don't really know what it means. And I do feel like we need a rebrand at some point. But I was just like, wow. And at the same time, we had a coworker going through an issue where she figured out that a family member, who happened to be 3 at the time, was being trafficked here in Columbus, Mississippi. And so that's what really, between both of those things, got me thinking, oh my gosh, we've got to do something. And so started this journey of learning all that I could. And I'm in a group nationwide that gets together twice a year to find solutions for this problem. And there's some big people doing big things. One of our friends took down Pornhub, like really big deal. One of my friends met with Melania last week from this group. Like there's some traction happening and people are starting to understand this is a problem and it's in every single community in every state in the nation. And so we'd done some education with our staff starting back November. And then we thought, what do we do when we identify? We're actually able to make an identification of 3 children who reached out for help in a month's time that I wasn't really prepared for because, okay, we trained our staff, we made some identifications, now what? And that's what was missing was the now what. And so I'm in DC in March and I was sharing that with a friend. She goes, oh, you need to go meet Ashley Chapman. She's sitting over here. Talk to Ashley. Tell me about your solution. So she did. It's called Just in Time. I said, I want to do this. She goes, well, we've been working on it for 2 years. I need like somebody to roll it out.
To do it.
Yeah. And I said, I will be your tester. And so we worked so hard from March until 2 weeks ago. Their team did a phenomenal job getting everything ready. And it took, I was telling a friend, I didn't even tell anybody how much work I've put into this and how hard work it's been, but it's so rewarding. So for 3 months, like just in the grind, getting it done. And then we were able to launch it 2 weeks ago. And just in 2 weeks' time, we've had some stories coming through already, and it is opening people's eyes of, okay, now I know what to look for. But not only that, our platform, we have one that's just specific to Allegro clinics and our protocols and education, but then we gave one to the community. And we want everyone to have access to this, everyone to save it on their phone. So if you're curious about a situation, you can look and see. But one of our employees was out of town in a clinic setting. And due to the training, she recognized a situation where this is a problem. It was an older man and a girl who he was claiming was 18, but she didn't look 18. And so she took action. It's kind of a long story, but the cops ended up coming to the clinic, arresting him, pulling the girl into safety, said, do you know where you're staying? And they took the girl. She didn't know the address, but she could guide them to where she was staying. When they got there were 11 other girls under the age of 18. And she came into my office to tell me, and I'm just bawling, like I'm crying. And she said, I've never seen you cry. I said, well, like on one hand, I'm so sad for these girls. And it's oppressive to think like they have been living in this situation. But on the other hand, like I'm crying because I'm so proud of you for taking action. And just that was so brave. And she'll admit it was scary as hell,
Oh, yeah.
But she did it. And that was the biggest part. And I'm so proud of that action. So, I keep just, as I'm telling people, we need to educate, which is what we started doing. But then I want to empower people to feel confident enough to take action. And that's how we make real change. That's what I want Allegro to be remembered for, is how did we help our community? How do we give back and really initiate change? It's not much about everything else. I hope that all of our employees love their job and they retire with us. That's a great goal. But even more than that, like in 50 years, when you hear the name Allegro, it's like, they positively impacted the community. That's the big goal.
Well, and something like that, where you said human trafficking is such a big cause. I started helping Zachary's with fundraisers because they were doing like an American Heart Walk and nobody showed up. And I'm like, it needs to be the local guy with the heart problem. Or if it's autism, it needs to be the kid, which turned into like what Rowdy's doing, what Scott's doing with Rowdy. You need that name. And I think probably the biggest challenge, y'all are on the front line as far as noticing problems. I guess teachers and maybe police would be the next along y'all's level of contact and being aware, but is the fact over fear situation. Whereas everything I see is a lot of times the Facebook lady about the white van that happens to be in their neighborhood. And, and then you go back to the real statistics of like,
in Mississippi, it was less than 1% abductions.
Yeah, and it's like pure kidnappings. And when people think of that, they think kidnapping and ransom. They don't think like just being taken and given drugs and stuff. But it's such a big intangible thing to where like, I didn't see that story about that if you hadn't shared it. You know what I mean? Like that deserves to be shared because that's real as opposed to some rumor on Facebook about somebody doing something here,
Right.
And it's just not tangible to some people. And the more it is, and like you said, the more people have courage. I encourage, I spent some time in the newspaper chasing cops. So I tell my wife and kids, I'm like, call the cops every single time anything happens. My oldest daughter works at Zachary's. If somebody inappropriately hits on her, I'm like, call the cop. I'm like, throw them all in jail. Like, that's it. Like, cause you just, until that, my daughter's got older. How old are your children now?
They are 14, 12, and
You
9.
got
So
any
we're
of
in
them
the
working
thick
yet?
of
You
it.
got them
Yes, my
tied to a
oldest.
gas pump? Or?
Yes, my oldest started with the grunt work. He has done all the lawn work. When he's working in between sports. Yep, put him to work.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. That's my hard.
Yes.
What do they say that your kids don't listen to you because they're too busy watching what you do. So it's a good thing if you
Yes.
get a hardworking kid and you can.
Yes.
They'll at least respect work and respect that
That's right.
side of part of it. That part of it. So both for the human trafficking, we're going to come up with a better phrase in the next couple of weeks, and Allegro. This is the pitch away. What's the best way they can support that and support you directly?
Sure. Well, I did want to take out some paid advertisements that gives the QR code to get to the app. And so I did that with the packet, and I'll be doing that with the dispatch as well. We'll try to do a big social media push. I want it as easy as possible, just for people to scan the QR code, then you save. It's an actual website now. They're trying to turn things into an app, but you can save it to your home screen.
Well, now that we've got fancy video, we'll put this QR right here. Isn't that lovely?
Yes.
See, there you go. We're on a roll.
Great. Yes. And then I think, just supporting us, whether that's recommendation or coming on in, like our behavioral health got started out of COVID. I just was sitting there thinking I was the very first one to swab somebody for COVID in our system, because I'm not going to ask my staff to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And that was back when you had to go all the way to the back. I was dressed out head to toe. It's so funny now when we look back. But I started thinking people are not going to be okay. And we need to do something about that. Just the isolation, all the rules and regs, the changes. And that's what birthed our behavioral health that we started at Allegro East. And I told our staff back in December, I said, I really want to expand that. I didn't know what that looked like. I was not planning on opening a new site. It just all kind of fell into place when East was booked out and we have a waiting list, and I don't like a waiting list. Like, we're Allegro, we're fast, we want to get people in. So we needed a second site to help handle that. And you were talking about, if I can go back real quick for a plug, you were talking about just what stress, what stress does on the body. And I really want to encourage everybody. I don't care which provider you go to in town, but you need to get a wellness visit once a year. You need to know your baseline labs. My labs are different than yours. My blood pressure normal is different than yours. And so every year, everyone should watch those. So this time last year, I was going through just an extremely stressful situation, and it was time for my Healthy You. I thought I had just went on a walk with my girlfriends. I said, I feel so healthy. I feel the healthiest I've felt in a long time. You and I talked about walking a 12-minute mile. I could walk the 12-minute mile. Like, I was doing all these different things, but my lab work told me differently. So I get my lab back and I'm like, why are my liver and my kidneys shutting down? Like, this doesn't make any sense. And so I started to put together the amount of stress that I was under was literally like my organs started shutting down. So then I had to figure out, what is my new stress management strategy? And I worked on it hard for 3 months. And then when I got my labs back, they were all back to normal. And so I just want to encourage the audience too, like, don't underestimate, if you're under extreme stress, the side effects that it has on your body, and go to a clinic and talk it out. And there's a lot of things you can do to manage stress, especially, I'll throw out, like, I've got several friends in a narcissist relationship that can really affect your body. A friend of mine was like, I feel like I'm in a fog and I can't make a decision. And I looked at her, I said, you are normal. That is a side effect of being with someone who's a narcissist, like those type of things. We'd love to help educate the public, which in turn, with our behavioral health, we can help you. And we want people to come in broken and come out feeling a little bit better. Like, that's the goal of each clinic.
That's why behavioral health is so important, because it's not just a pill.
No,
you got to talk them through it. And like, one of the biggest breakthroughs I had was I was waking up at 3 a.m. all the time and just immediately going, and it still happens, but now I know what to do. But like, breaking into like, oh, we're not finished flipping that house and this deal's going to fall apart and everything's not working. And after talking with my coach for a while and just weeks of working through it, I was like, writing down everything that happened the day before. You know what the correlation was? I was eating after 8 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. And so you'd wake up in the middle of the night because your blood sugar was high. And males have it a little higher than women, but they immediately correlate. If the front of your head hurts, whether it's from the Bourbon and Coke or Rocky Road or actual lions coming to eat me.
Right.
It is all a lion's coming to eat me.
Right.
And then, so as long as I know, like, if I stop eating at 7:30 or 8, I wake up at 3 a.m. I'm like, You go back to
Yep.
bed. It's not as big of a deal. Now you might have,
Yes.
realistic stress that the tiger or lion is coming at you.
Right,
But
right.
that's been a big discussion with my kids. I'm like, be careful what you're eating because you don't know how much of that's causing your anxiety and everything
So
else. So,
true. Yes.
well, cool. So if they want to help, we'll have the QR code that we put up a little while ago.
Sure.
And then if they're at the clinics, name the ones that are in the Golden Triangle that they can go to quite easily.
Sure. Well, we've got one in the New Hope area right by the school. We have Allegro East, which is our largest location that houses, we see everything, I call it birth to death or womb to tomb, whatever you want to say, brand new newborn. They have the mental health on site and they have internal medicine and walk in. Like they're our most extensive clinic and they've got an amazing staff. So that's right over there by Bullets in East Columbus. And then we have the Plaza, which houses 3 of our clinics, which is behavioral health, OBGYN, and the Allegro Plaza. And then we have Allegro North down there. And then we've got our family pharmacies in town for those.
Yeah. And the OBGYN thing has been a big breakthrough, I'm sure.
Yes,
So.
it's been fantastic. What's been really good with that, we do want to kind of like the Dutch Village analogy. The Plaza is a one-stop shop. So you've got a pregnant woman that also might have the flu. Guess what? She can go downstairs and get cared for. And so that the OB can focus on OB. And that's been really helpful. Or same thing, we had someone on the second floor that had a UTI. Guess what? You can go downstairs and handle that. So that was the dream, is to help everybody from, womb to tomb and in any capacity. And that's what we like doing. It's fun.
Well, good deal. Will be great. It's great having you on. I'm probably gonna have to
Thank
have you
you.
on again. I may even drag Matt on here.
I
But
know.
I'm fascinated by the family story, and not only that, but the stuff you've done on your own is incredible. And it
Well,
is
thanks.
going from accountancy to becoming a nurse and becoming.
Oh, I told you I would tell you something I haven't shared.
Okay.
You want to, and
Yes,
we have
let's
time
do
for
it.
that?
Yes.
All right. So if for anyone who might have imposter syndrome, because I think that's a real thing and people don't talk about it much. And a lot of times, sure, I'm confident, but it doesn't mean that there's rooms I walk in that I don't have imposter syndrome. And so what most people don't know, and I'm going to give Scott credit. I liked his podcast on not finishing school. I think there's a stigma. Sometimes when you walk in a room, people have enough initials to spit the alphabet around a couple times. And I'm not one of those people. In fact, on my business card, I do not have a title and I don't have my degree. I don't have anything on there. And there's a story behind that too. But I want you to see me for Amy. If you ask enough questions and you want my business card, then you can find out what I do, but it's not on my card. And I want you to get to know me. And there's a reason behind that. But when I finished school and I went to Charlotte, and there was something with the testing of our degree. If you went out of state, we had to wait a lot longer to test than everybody who tested in Alabama. So all my friends in Alabama passed their test. And so I get there and I'm just not a good test taker, which is one reason I never went back to school. I have no desire to go back to school. But I failed my nursing boards. And it was so embarrassing. And honestly, at the time, I was working at Starbucks because girls got to have a job. I have a place to live and I have to pay my bills. And I still remember mopping the floors at Starbucks thinking like, what did I do this for? I just went through this. I mean, nursing school was hard. It was very hard. I'm like, I made it through that. And here I am, and I can't pass a daggum test, and what am I going to do? And just to encourage anybody out there who's not a good test taker, I was lifting weights at the gym and there was a nurse there. And actually, I lost my first job. I forget that part too, because it all runs together. Because the time that it took, they're like, we can't hold this job for you anymore. You didn't pass your test. Okay. I was going to go into OBGYN actually. And now I'm glad I didn't do that. But so I'm working out. I'm like, man, I don't know what I'm going to do, and she goes, oh, I know somebody who can teach you how to take the test. And so her name's Barb. We're still friends on Facebook. She is very dear to me because for 4 weeks, she taught me. It's not that I didn't know the material. I didn't know how to take the test. And so I went in and I aced the test. And, it's like, okay, then I got a job. But that hard path to get there has made me so much more empathetic, sympathetic to someone who also might be in that situation. So we have hired people who haven't passed their test, and I'm going to give you a second chance because I needed a second chance. And so now you fast forward and I actually have a meeting this fall, but I've been on the board, University of Alabama's nursing board for however many years it's been, almost 8, 9, 10, I don't know. But I've been chair. And I get a little emotional when I watch the stats of the people who didn't pass, but also the fact that here's a girl that gets this high honor. It's such an honor to be able to be on that board, but then I've been able to lead it for the past 2 years, and I don't deserve to be there. Because if accolades or a resume and all your failures, were on there, I shouldn't be able to be that chair, but you get those second chances. And so it's just kind of an encouragement for anybody in that entrepreneurial world. You're going to fail, you're going to fall, but you can get back up and then you'll be even stronger for it. So I have not shared that publicly yet.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's the whole point of this podcast, is for people who are looking from a distance and will just be like, well, they had some gas stations and they built a clinic and they don't understand it. And I can tell you from meeting, I met every single person extensively at Papa John's corporate level, spent a lot of time with them. And with the exception of CFO and the CEO, who were like MIT, just off the charts, every benefit in the world, smart as can be. Everyone else had worked their way up and had general failures. And as I say in almost every podcast, several careers of varying degrees of success, where you just have these little stumbles that from a distance don't look that hard, and then, the older you get, the more successful you are. They just have more zeros on them. So.
That's right. Well, most people think, now, oh, wow, you are successful, or they might think that I am, but it's like that glacier picture. They have no idea what we've been through to get to that point.
And you're taking care of 170 other children. So
that's right. That is true.
All right. Well, good deal. Well, thanks so much for coming on. We'll see y'all next time.
All right. Thanks.
Hey, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast. My name is Colin Krieger, and my day job is real estate. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to talk to you. Or if you just want to sit and talk real estate in a no pressure situation, I'd love to help you. I work with RE/MAX Partners in Starkville, Columbus, and West Point, Mississippi. I can help you find an agent anywhere in Mississippi or anywhere in the country. Just reach out to our office at 662-327-7705 or find me anywhere when you type in 662-329-SOLD.